Everyone had a place card. Everyone had a gift. I had a paper napkin with my name scribbled in blue ink. The maitre d' offered me a smile too practiced to be sincere and gestured toward a narrow corner table near the server's entrance. I stood for a moment, not moving, not blinking, just watching the flicker of candlelight across crystal glasses and polished silver. Linen-draped tables filled the center of the room like a curated magazine spread. And there, nestled awkwardly beside a swinging kitchen door, was mine. One place setting, a paper napkin. My name slanted across it in quick, unbothered strokes. Blue ballpoint, no calligraphy. 2 years ago, I covered Savannah's graduation dinner at a downtown rooftop venue. The dessert bar alone cost more than my rent. When they unrolled the thank you banner, Melanie was misspelled. No one corrected it. No one noticed. I did. I always did. I pulled out the chair, careful not to let the metal legs scrape the tile, and sat down. I smoothed the skirt of my dark green dress, suddenly aware of every shimmer of sequins I shouldn't have bothered with. They had asked for formal. They hadn't asked for me. To my left, a server brushed by with a tray of champagne flutes. I declined with a tight smile, then folded my hands in my lap and watched as Savannah made her entrance. She shimmered. Not from sequins, those were too gauche for her, but from practiced poise and expensive tailoring. Her hair fell in loose waves, perfectly effortless. She greeted a small group near the bar, laughter already rising a little too loud, as if she'd written the script and was now watching the applause cue. Then, for a second, her eyes met mine. Just a flicker, a passing glance. And then she turned, so effortlessly, that I wondered if I'd imagined the whole thing. Guests filled in quickly. Cousins, spouses, the occasional tag-along friend who now counted as family. Conversations began to swell. Home renovations, real estate flips, new babies. The safe topics that kept things elegant. No one came to my table. Not to ask. Not to apologize, not to explain. Dinner began with appetizers. A waiter offered shrimp cocktail and goat cheese crostini. I took one of each, mostly for appearance. Across the room, Savannah lifted her glass and tapped a spoon against its rim. "Okay, everyone," she called, and immediately the room quieted. She motioned toward a large velvet bag resting beside her chair. Since it's Christmas and since we've all been through a year, I thought I'd do something special. She reached inside and began calling out names. Each gift came with a flourish. Aunt Valerie received a monogrammed robe. Uncle Mark got a bottle of rare bourbon. Tyler, a sleek new smartwatch. When Savannah finally stepped back and said, "That's everyone," people clapped, laughed, thanked her. No one looked at me. My napkin, creased now beneath my fingers, was the only thing in front of me. No ribbon, no wrapping. Then, with the practiced timing of a sitcom actress, Savannah turned to the center of the room and added with a smile, "Mel has everything. Minimalism, right?" Laughter. Not malicious. Just warm and oblivious enough to make it worse. I smiled. That kind of smile you train into your muscles when you've lived in spaces like this too long. Then I reached for my clutch, opened it beneath the table, and pulled out my phone. A quick message. 3 lines. 1 recipient. Sent. Then I slipped it back and sat a little straighter. Marjorie stood, her glass raised. "I just want to say how proud I am of this family," she began, her tone silk-wrapped and sincere. "And especially of Savannah, the one who holds this family together." There was applause. Savannah offered her signature humble shrug, the one that screamed, "Of course I do." I lifted my glass, said nothing. Toasted with water, I'd refilled myself from the pitcher the server forgot to bring to my side. I looked around the room I paid for and saw nothing that belonged to me, not even acknowledgement. They forgot me, but they didn't forget to spend my money. The light in the restaurant restroom was soft and gold-toned, designed to flatter even the most tired holiday face. But I wasn't here to adjust makeup or fix hair. I was here for something colder. Behind the locked door of the last stall, I pulled out my phone and opened the email again. The subject line was simple. Payment cancellation confirmed. Beneath it, a digital receipt from Hale Hospitality. My refund had gone through. The total matched the full event package, $6,237.22. Reversal finalized. Account cleared. My thumb hovered over the screen, the glow of it casting faint light on the tile wall. It was done. A sound near the sinks pulled my mind sideways, and I slipped the phone back into my clutch. I stepped out, paused at the mirror, and stared at myself. The dress still fit the way I wanted. The lipstick was intact. I looked like someone who belonged here. Until you looked too closely. 2 years ago, in our old kitchen, Marjorie had approached me while stirring cream into her coffee. Savannah had just opened her boutique and bounced a check to one of her vendors. Mom smiled and said, "We'll keep this between us, won't we?" She slid a slip of paper toward me, already filled out. I didn't argue. I Venmo'd the amount, $5,000, even added a sunflower emoji in the notes. They called it help. I called it silence. That wasn't the only time. There was the time I agreed to co-sign Savannah's lease, just for show. And the time I flew in last minute to finish assembling centerpieces for a gala they claimed I didn't RSVP for. Every time I stayed quiet. Every time they asked for just a little more. Until now. I adjusted the strap of my dress, then made my way down the hallway and into a memory from 3 days ago. Gregory Hale met me in his office, surrounded by tasting menus and framed reviews. His gray hair was combed neatly, his suit tailored. I had called ahead. He closed the door behind me and offered a glass of water I didn't take. "I need to modify the payment agreement," I said. He blinked. "I'm not sure I follow." "I paid in full, but I want to reverse it before the event. You'll be rebooking it anyway." His brows lifted. "This close to Christmas? Not likely." "I'll take that risk." He looked at me the way professionals do when they suspect something domestic is unraveling but know better than to ask. After a pause, he nodded. "And you want that on record?" "Yes," I said. "Time-stamped. And if anyone calls to ask, you can confirm I withdrew voluntarily. But I'd also like you to track who rebooks." That got a flicker of curiosity from him. "They're going to assume it's taken care of," I said quietly. "I want to see what happens when it's not." He leaned back in his chair. "You're not the first daughter I've seen fund a table that forgets her name. And you won't be the last." He didn't ask for more. Just printed a confirmation and handed me a copy. "I'll keep it between us," he said. "Unlike some." Now, back in the present, I stepped closer to the mirror. The bathroom was quiet. No soft chatter. No clinking glasses. Just the low hum of the fan and the steady pulse in my own ears. I looked at myself. The reflection wasn't dramatic. Just composed. Just done. Let them show me how much they value this dinner. I turned, exited the restroom, and made my way back into the warm hum of the dining room. The music was still playing, some polished instrumental version of a holiday classic. At the table, my seat was still empty, the paper napkin still slightly askew. I slid into the chair. A waiter approached with a tray. I nodded once. He set a plate down in front of me, caprese skewers arranged like a wreath, and poured water into my glass. I picked it up, took a sip, and smiled as the waiter set down the appetizers. The most expensive gift I gave that night wasn't the food. It was the moment I stopped pretending. A lightness had settled in my chest since returning from the restroom. Odd, given that nothing outside had changed. The lights still sparkled, the waiters still smiled. The music still twinkled through the room, polite and inoffensive. But something inside me had shifted, clean and irreversible. I'd spent years being the dependable one. The quiet one. The one who made herself small so Savannah could shine. My mother used to say, "You're the reliable one. Your sister needs the spotlight more than you." And I believed it, for longer than I'd care to admit. But something about seeing my name scrawled on a napkin near a restroom door cracked something old and rigid. I let them talk. Let them laugh and toast and forget. Savannah recounted her latest collaboration with a designer I knew she hadn't paid yet. Marjorie bragged about a non-existent grant for the cross-family initiative. Tyler said little, but I noticed his eyes flick to me every now and then, a question forming he hadn't yet found words for. As dessert menus made their rounds, Savannah stood. She tapped her glass with a butter knife and beamed. "One last surprise," she sang, perfectly timed to the lull between conversations. "A group photo, just like last year. We'll frame it for Mom's mantle. You know, memories that don't live in the cloud." There were chuckles and a few theatrical groans. People began pushing back their chairs, reapplying lipstick, smoothing jackets. I didn't move. That's when the waiter arrived. Slim, well-composed, eyes alert. He stopped beside Marjorie with a soft but firm tone. "Ma'am, would you mind confirming the payment method before we close out the evening?" Marjorie blinked. Her hand waved vaguely toward me. Then she froze. I didn't move. Didn't blink. I let the silence speak first. "No longer," I said, voice level but clear. "I canceled the transfer this morning." Every fork paused midair. Glasses remained suspended, just shy of lips. Savannah's smile faltered for the briefest second, then returned, tighter. The waiter's brow twitched upward, professional but aware. Tyler turned to me, mouth slightly open. I reached into my purse and placed a small cream envelope on the table, neatly centered among the dessert forks and rose petals. "Inside is the full invoice and confirmation of refund," I said evenly. "Feel free to divide it as you see fit." Nobody reached for it. A few glanced around, waiting for someone else to take the lead. No one did. Marjorie's eyes darted toward Savannah, then back to the envelope. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Savannah stared at the edge of the tablecloth like it had personally betrayed her. I stood. Chairs creaked and someone coughed, loud in the quiet. "This time," I said, tucking the clutch under my arm, "I'm gifting you the chance to remember who paid." Silence. That's what the morning after betrayal sounds like. No calls, no texts, just headlines. The light coming through my kitchen window was muted, pale, and hesitant. Portland skies never gave much in December, but that morning they seemed particularly gray, like the world had agreed to match the tone. I sat at the table, fingers wrapped around a mug of tea gone cold. No notifications, no missed calls, just silence. And it rang louder than the laughter from the night before. I opened my laptop. The cross-family group chat, normally cluttered with chain emojis and vague, "so proud of our girls," posts from Aunt Valerie, sat dormant. Savannah hadn't texted. Marjorie hadn't texted. Not even Tyler, who usually sent a photo of his breakfast and a pun. Instead, an email had arrived at 6:14 a.m. Subject: disappointed. Melanie: "You embarrassed us. You made a scene. That dinner was meant to bring us together, not humiliate people who love you. You always do this. Take things personally. We'll talk when you've cooled down." Mom, no signature. No love. Just Mom. I didn't reply. I just archived it and opened Instagram. Savannah had posted an IG story. A candle flickering. Overlaid text in script font read, "Sometimes people hurt us when we've only ever loved them." Below that, a photo of the group at Fontaine, minus me, cropped out cleanly like I'd never been there. I didn't roll my eyes. I didn't scream. I just tapped out and opened the next tab. An unread message sat from Tyler. A screenshot. No caption, just the image. It was a text thread from 2 months ago. Marjorie to Savannah. "Melanie doesn't need credit. Just let her fund it. She's good at that." I stared at it longer than I should have. I read it again. And again. Not surprised, not hurt. Just steady. A click in the machine that had been running for years without me checking the wiring. I opened my file folders, pulled up PDFs, statements, bank transfers. My name attached to bills, to contracts, to vendor orders, all uncredited. I compiled a short packet. Cover page. Event summary and financial sponsorship, La Fontaine. Clean, factual, time-stamped. I attached it to an email. To gregory@lafontainegroup.com. CC, marjorie.cross, savannah.cross. BCC, Tyler, Aunt Valerie, Uncle Stan, and 3 others who'd watched me pay for cake and still walked past me with gift bags. Subject. For your records, Christmas Eve sponsorship clarification. Attached, you'll find the full breakdown of expenses covered, documentation of payment reversal, and confirmation of client withdrawal. No bitterness, just truth. An hour later, I refreshed Facebook out of habit, and there it was, on La Fontaine's official page. Client update. Please note that La Fontaine's Christmas Eve private party was partially canceled due to payment withdrawal initiated by the client, Ms. Melanie Cross. We appreciate your understanding. The logo was below, their signature font. No drama, just business. I took another sip of cold tea. That's when my phone rang. A name I hadn't seen in over a year. Joan Adler, attorney, former roommate, woman who once said I was too quiet for the sharks I swam with. I picked up. Mel, she said without preamble. Your name's still listed as an officer on something called the Cross Family Fund. Did you know that? They said I was family, but when they needed a name that looked good on paper, I became a signature. Joan's office was cool in every sense. Gray chairs, black shelves, glass walls that overlooked Portland's slow-moving downtown. A single plant, perfectly watered. A steel carafe of coffee no one touched. I sat across from her, a legal pad on my lap I hadn't written on, fingers folded over a pen I hadn't uncapped. She leaned back in her chair and tapped her screen. Mel, your name is listed on 4 IRS 990EZ filings, all tied to the Cross Family Fund. In 2 of them, you're labeled as board treasurer. My stomach didn't drop. It didn't twist. It just stilled. Joan turned the monitor slightly. See here? These withdrawals are flagged as administrative support and program expansion, but they match dates Savannah hosted influencer brunches and rented photo studios. She raised an eyebrow. That's not a coincidence. I stared at the signature line. My name, slanted, too perfect. I knew it wasn't mine. 2 years ago, Marjorie had stood in my apartment, hands wrapped around a lavender latte, smiling like a realtor about to close. This is just for optics, she'd said. We're applying for a local grant, and it looks better if you're listed. You're the responsible one. She handed me a blank form. Just sign the bottom. We'll fill in the rest later. And I did. Because that's what daughters do, isn't it? Joan sighed. You might not have meant to be involved, but if this gets audited, they'll come looking for the name on the filings. Yours. I didn't flinch. I reached for the legal pad and began writing. Not thoughts. Actions. By 7 p.m., I was home, the city dark outside my windows. I sat at my desk and opened the Cross Family Fund folder I'd started earlier that week. I combed through bank records, PDFs, donor receipts Savannah had forwarded, for transparency, but never actually discussed. Everything fit into place now. The boutique renovations, the rebranding gala, the magazine interviews that quoted her generosity but cited my fund. I opened a new document. As of January 4th, 2024, I am no longer affiliated with the Cross Family Fund or any initiatives bearing my name without consent. That was all it said. No blame, no names, just a clean cut. Then I drafted a second email. This one to the 5 community partners who'd listed me as a liaison. I clarified I had not authorized use of my name, had not overseen spending, and was willing to cooperate in any future audits. I thanked them for their work. I wished them well. Then I hit send. By midnight, I'd uploaded the statement to my personal website, quietly shared the link on a locked post, and watched the view count tick up. Not many. Just enough. The collapse wouldn't be explosive. It would be structural, because I wasn't suing them. I wasn't threatening. I was simply removing my name, my signature, My silence. The next morning, just as I was about to power down, a new message pinged into my inbox. Subject: Advisor Inquiry, Direct Affiliation. From foundation.director@eastportwomen.org. We'd like to formally invite you to serve as a named advisor. On your terms, under your name. I used to buy my way into spaces that refused to name me. Now I build the space and invite others in. The scent of something cinnamon sweet drifted through the small community hall as I unfolded the last of the chairs. Evening light slanted in through the high windows, turning the wood floor gold. Hand-drawn signs hung from blue painter's tape. Welcome, quiet bridge neighbors. Potluck tonight. Bring joy, leave shame at the door. Some were crooked. A few had smudges. All of them were honest. We didn't hire an event planner. There were no gift bags, no monogrammed napkins. Just kids running between folding tables and volunteers arranging foil-covered casseroles with the kind of reverence reserved for holidays and healing. I stepped back to admire the setup. My name wasn't on a banner, but for once I didn't need it to be. Ms. Cross? I turned. A girl, no more than 8, stood there in pink sneakers and a paper crown made from recycled flyers. She held something behind her back, eyes darting up and down like she wasn't sure if she'd interrupt. Yes? She extended a card. Crayon lines, a wobbly house, and beneath it, "Thank you, Miss Cross, for not forgetting us." I took it slowly, as if the weight might shift something in my chest. "Did you draw this?" She nodded. "My mom said we live here because of you." I crouched to her level, smiled. "Number, you live here because you belong here." She grinned and ran off. I stayed kneeling a moment longer, holding the card like it might vanish if I stood too fast. Behind me, someone cleared his throat. "Tyler." I smiled. He looked sheepish, holding a manila envelope. "Brought some old photos I found. Back when you used to plan the food drives, but somehow weren't in any of the group shots." I took them. "Sounds familiar." He shrugged. "This time I brought a camera too." Gregory appeared not long after, cradling a fruit tart with careful pride. "From the staff," he said. "You fed everyone. It's our turn." I laughed. "You remembered." Hard to forget a woman who took down a whole ecosystem with nothing but receipts and grace. I thanked him, but didn't linger. There were people to greet, conversations to join. For the first time in years, I wasn't watching for shadows or subtext, just living. Later, after the potluck quieted and the last crock pot was unplugged, I went home. The card from the little girl sat beside me on the desk. Next to it, I placed the original invoice from La Fontaine, the one I'd kept not out of bitterness, but because it was the receipt for the moment I stopped disappearing. I opened my old email drafts folder. Dozens of unsent replies blinked back at me. Responses to Marjorie's guilt, Savannah's spin, relatives who said nothing but meant worse. I didn't read them. I just selected all and pressed delete. No reply was necessary. Silence this time was peace. Then I pulled out a fresh document. Strategic Director, Quiet Bridge Fund. I filled out the last line. Signature, Melanie Cross. Not bolded, not capitalized, but finally, visible. The email came 2 weeks after the Quiet Bridge potluck. Subject line simple. Coffee? It was from Marjorie. No apology. No context. Just that one word, heavy as a boulder at the bottom of a cold river. I stared at it for 5 full minutes, hands still sticky from peeling mandarin oranges for the community pantry fridge. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled on my coat and walked the long way home. The sky was gray, a January kind of tired, but the streets were calm. I passed the old community center, the one Savannah once claimed to have revitalized. The mural now featured new faces. Names were painted at the bottom, mine included. Back in my apartment, I brewed a single mug of tea and left it steaming on the windowsill. I watched the inbox until the screen dimmed. No follow-up. That night, I received a second message, this time from an unknown number. "She's not well," it read. "You should hear her out. You're still her daughter. I didn't delete it. I didn't reply either. I just stared at the words until they blurred into each other. Still her daughter. The next day, I walked into the office early and found a note on my desk. A volunteer had left it. A mother of two who now had housing thanks to Quiet Bridge. You believed in people before they believed in themselves. Thank you. It made me pause longer than I expected. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. Later that evening, I walked downtown. The city buzzed with the usual January rhythm. Slow, uncertain, still shedding the weight of the holidays. I passed the cafe Marjorie had always loved, the one with frosted windows and copper light fixtures. She was there, sitting by the window. Alone. Hands folded. Posture too perfect, like someone trying not to fall apart in public. I didn't go in, but I did stop. She looked up once as if sensing something. Her eyes didn't widen. She didn't wave, but she didn't look away either. She just nodded, a small, tired gesture, and looked down at her hands. I stood there for a long beat. Then I walked on. That night, I opened a box I hadn't touched in years. It held old tax papers, a journal, a Polaroid of me and Savannah dressed as matching angels for a Christmas pageant. I placed the photo in a new folder, one labeled Past, Keep, Not Repeat. Then I opened a new page in my notebook. Quiet Bridge Phase 2. Childcare vouchers, legal aid, small business microgrants. At the bottom, I drew a single horizontal line. Beneath it, one name. Melanie Cross. No fanfare, just purpose. 3 days later, a card arrived by mail. Creamstock, formal cursive. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Inside, a sentence written in ballpoint pen. You always were steadier than I gave you credit for. No apology, but no denial either. I placed the card next to the little girl's drawing on my desk. Not because it changed anything, but because it finally admitted something. She'd seen me. Maybe not then, but now. That afternoon, I returned to the community hall. The place was already filling again. Food trays, folding chairs, music from someone's phone playing something off-key but perfect. A woman waved me over, pointing to a corner where a few teenagers had gathered with notebooks. They want to build their own fund, she said. They're asking how you started. I smiled. Tell them I stopped waiting to be invited. She blinked. Excuse me? I turned to her, voice soft but firm. Tell them the truth. I stopped waiting to be invited to the table. I built my own. Then I walked across the room, sat beside the kids, and listened as they pitched their dream. Scholarships, bicycles for kids, a library, and a converted bus. I didn't take over. I just nodded, encouraged, handed out blank forms when needed. Later that night, I stood alone at the back of the hall, looking out over something I hadn't realized had taken root. Not just a program, a space, a network, a life beyond my last name. My phone buzzed once. Tyler. She's asking if she can call you. I stared at the message for a full minute, then typed back. Tell her I'm not angry, but I'm not available either. He didn't reply. He didn't need to. I slipped my phone away, walked back to the middle of the room, and helped carry in a new folding table. It squeaked. It wobbled, but it held. So did I. Betrayed in silence, Melanie chose not to scream, but to withdraw everything that propped up the illusion. The house of cards collapsed, not with fury, but with precision. Because when injustice feeds on quiet compliance, the boldest act is refusing to hold it up any longer. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody, justice may arrive late, but it resonates powerfully once it's heard. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more stories where truth always finds its voice.